I'm here today with Paula Yost from the Country Law Shack. So Paula, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
Yes, you too. The last time I saw you, you spoke at one of our monthly classes. And we were just talking before, but you were one of the most entertaining, best speakers that we've ever had. So I'm so excited to have you back here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to being here.
So tell us a little bit more about you, your background, how you got into what you're doing, what you do. Let's just hear about that.
Sure. So I'm a native of Cabarrus County. I'm from here. I grew up on a 60-acre farm outside of Mount Pleasant, and then my grandfather owned like little pockets of real estate around that area, and so did my grandmother's family. So the Walker Farm is really it was our family business back in the 30s and the 40s. So I went to high school here. I graduated. I went to Virginia Tech.
Okay.
I got a double degree in English and microbiology with a minor in chemistry. Then 9/11 happened. Job market was terrible. So I went to law school. So I went to, it was called Widener University School of Law. It's the only law school in Delaware.
Okay.
So I went to law school, and it was way too cold up there for me. And so after I graduated, I came back home. And so I went to work for Big Law for a while. I detested billing time, and I also really wanted to start my own family. So I left Big Law around the same time I wound up with my great-grandmother's house. So my great-grandmother's house has been my family since the 1920s. So it was a total piece of crap. It was a dump.
A real estate investor's dream.
Yes. I mean, it had no HVAC. The floor was rotting. The toilet was on the front porch because when this house was built, there was no indoor plumbing. So I hired a local architect who helped me upfit it for ADA accessibility, and I turned it into my law office. So it's right on Highway 49, and so it's great. And so that's where I have my little business.
Awesome. Love that. So what kind of law do you practice?
Predominantly, I'm an estate planner, and I do a lot of probate. I do some intellectual property law as well, but predominantly I deal with dead people and dead people's things.
Okay. Awesome.
And people who are going to be dead people.
That's perfect. And that's perfect for our audience, because our audience encompasses real estate investors at any stage that they're in. So the things that you have to say are exactly what they need to know. So let's talk a little bit of scenarios. So first, let's talk about what is the most rewarding part of your job. And then we will flip to the other side. What's the most challenging part of your job?
Well, the most rewarding part of my job is genuinely helping people. Some lawyers went to law school because they wanted to make a lot of money. And I never really did that. I was not financially motivated at all when I was young. And so I went to law school because I really wanted to help, and I wanted to really embrace the public service nature of being an attorney. I probably would have gone into a different path, but I had a lot of student loans in 2005 that I needed to take care of. But there was that. So I went in, I wanted to help people. That's the best part of my job. Even now, I love helping people. I love being able to wave my magic lawyer wand and it all works, right? The worst part of my job, though, is when people are Googling stuff, they're watching TikToks, they're researching at 2 o'clock in the morning about what the law is, and they're reading the wrong state's law. They're coming to me with just cluelessness about what they've done, and then I'm having to re-educate where they are. So the most frustrating thing for me is just generalized misinformation.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so then speaking of that, since mostly real estate investors are watching this, I think one of the biggest terms that's out there is probate.
Yes.
So can you explain what probate is, and then maybe go a little bit into how real estate investors can use probate to their benefit?
Yes. So first of all, probate in North Carolina is not the devil. It is kind of the devil in other states. But the reason it's not the devil in North Carolina is because North Carolina does not have a state estate tax. So that's a lot of similar words, right? Estate and state tax. It sounds similar. North Carolina doesn't do that. So there are definitely states that have state estate tax. Like if you die in Oregon, if you die in Pennsylvania, then yes, you are going to owe state estate tax. So we have a lot of people who move here and they think that like it's going to be like my grandpa's was in Pennsylvania. No, it's not. We don't do that. No one has ever won a Southern election by taxing dead people. That's not how we roll here. So that's one thing that makes it easier. The other thing is you don't owe federal estate tax.
I was going to ask about federal estate tax.
Yeah, you don't owe federal estate tax unless you're worth $13.9 million.
Okay.
So at least for like the people in my area, that is a significant minority of our population. Like most people don't have $14 million when they die. And so those people get a whole different speech from me than, you know, just your average, normal, less than 14 million upper middle class person. Those folks, some of the time the easiest thing they can do is just write a simple will. Me to my spouse to me, and then everything to our kids in equal parts, assuming those kids are all over 18. Because then if I leave my great-grandmother's house to my boys, then my boys will inherit that with the capital gains tax that I inherited it from. So you inherit capital gains tax bases for the government. So the best thing you can do, this sounds so bad, but the best thing you can do in a lot of cases is literally just die. Like, people come to see me all the time and they're like, can I retitle my house and put it in my kids' names? And I'm like, why? Do you have enough money that you don't need Medicaid planning? Do you have enough money that you don't need nursing care? And they're like, yeah, you know, I've got $2 million. And I'm like, okay, well, you're never going to qualify for Medicaid. Your Social Security is going to be too high for you to qualify for Medicaid. So why would you destroy your capital gains tax basis and make it, if you bought this house in 1994, why would you now give it a 2025 capital gains tax basis? That's stupid.
Yeah.
So I don't let people do that. So those are the reasons that people think probate's the devil. They think it's the devil because of taxes, and they think it's the devil because the government is somehow going to take their house. All probate really means is you are giving good faith creditors 90 days to raise their hand and say, hey, I haven't been paid yet.
Okay.
Most of those creditors are your funeral home, who you have to pay. You can't just screw the funeral home after they've cremated your loved one. Your attorney, if you need one. Sometimes people have a final EMS ride or an ambulance ride that's got to get paid, or they'll have some unpaid medical bills. And then unsecured debt, like if you've got an Amex bill that has, you know, out of control funding on it.
Okay.
Those types of things are what we see. Most of my elderly people don't even have credit card debt. It's my 40-year-olds who drop dead that have credit card debt. I don't see that usually in my older population.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, but probate's not a big deal. Many of my probates run 90 days and then I close them because there's nothing else coming in or going out. That 90-day window also, if you just run your notice to creditors, creditors can't bother you anymore. Like if they try to file a claim on day 92, we're going to reject that claim because it's barred by the statute of limitations.
Okay. And then when you run it in the paper?
Yeah.
Is there a specific paper?
So that depends on where you live.
Okay.
So Cabarrus County will allow you to do it in the Charlotte Observer, the Mecklenburg Times, or the Independent Tribune.
Okay.
But if you die in Rowan County, then I have to use Rowan County's newspaper. So it depends on each state and their local rules. That stuff gets very confusing if you're not used to doing it, which, not to toot my own horn, but that's why you need someone like me to help you with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you know, those savvy real estate investors out there that are taught to find probate deals, find those, are like investors reaching out to you? Like, do they look through the paper and then is your name associated with it? So I guess what I'm asking is, if there is a real estate investor who is interested in finding probate deals, how do they go about doing that?
What I would recommend that they do is cultivate relationships with their local estate planning attorneys. So there are always people who call me and say, I inherited this property and I don't want it. I don't want to pay the taxes on it. I just want to unload it. Like, I'm shocked some of the time at how uneducated people are about, like, you just inherited an asset that's worth 6 figures. Like, they look at it like it's a bird. I'm seeing your face and you're like horrified. But like, I have people literally who are like, I can't afford the taxes on this piece of land I just got. And I'm like, well, sell it and they literally don't understand the process of like how you convey real estate. Like the idea that you can call a real estate agent and list it blows their mind some of the time. Like I spend so much time giving finance advice. But I think if you reach out to local estate attorneys, people probably show up in my office a couple times a year, sometimes a couple times a month, who they don't want real estate. The same thing happens to us with cars.
Yeah.
Like it's not atypical for a dead person's car to be in my driveway at work. Like that happens a lot more often than you would think.
Yeah.
And so, if I know I have an investor who's itching to purchase something, I'll call them and say, hey friend, I have something, you want to talk to these folks?
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Good
We
to
can
know.
do that. I do know that sometimes people just send cold letters because they're searching the paper or they're following the clerk's office for the public filings. I honestly don't think that's the greatest approach, because what happens is it makes heirs really mad. They get really angry when somebody then calls them and is like, hey, I saw your mom died, I want to buy her house. Like they get really unhappy about that.
I can understand that.
So I would encourage a lot of delicacy if you're going to just cold call or cold mail people. You can do that, and people do it all the time.
Yeah.
But I think a more effective strategy is to just be friends with the local real estate attorneys.
Okay, that's good. So it's funny that you say that, because I did that. There was a house that is down the road from me.
Yeah.
I could tell that it had been vacant for a very long time. So me, being the real estate investor that I am,
Right.
I look it up.
Right.
And I found who owned it. And then I find the heirs.
Yeah.
And then I find the heirs' phone numbers.
Yeah.
So I called them, and first they didn't pick up for a while.
Yeah.
And then eventually one of the heirs did get back to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And I just came at it to her like I wanted to help her. Like, I drive by your house all the time. I see that it's vacant. Like, what can I do? I'm a real
Right.
estate agent. I'm an investor.
Right.
How can I help you?
Yeah.
So I started building this rapport with her. She kept telling me that the date that the probate should be done was a certain time, and then she would follow up with me in the next month, and it's still not done. Like, I don't really know what's going on. And then finally, this last time, she was like, can you please help me?
Yeah.
Like, you have been so nice.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do. It's been a year. I can't make the payments.
Right.
I don't know what to do.
Right.
And I was like, oh, light bulb, calling Paula.
Yes.
And I think they have some time with you coming up. So how often do situations like that happen, and why would the probate process be a year?
So let's talk about that. My personal opinion is that the probate process does not need to take that long. It depends on the culture of the law firm you're choosing to work with.
Okay.
So as a general rule, my process, and I can't speak for the process of my colleagues, but my process is, if you call me, I have you come in, I have you bring me a will and a death certificate. I can't help anybody without a death certificate. If you don't have a will, I will still have you come in, because I'll have a conversation with you about what we need to do to get your estate open. I will get it open. As soon as I get letters back, my office staff is trained that they immediately file a notice of publication of creditors. They run a notice of publication of creditors, and then we deal with all that. At that point, it depends on when you die, right? And it depends on your tax situation. So if you don't need to file a tax return because you died when you were 80 and the only thing you were getting was Social Security, we can probably just close it. But if you have $2 million and you're living off your investment interest, then we have to, and you didn't die until November, then we probably have to file a tax return. So we kind of have to pay attention to the tax implications. Taxes are a reason something can take a year.
Okay.
Kids fighting is a reason an estate can take a year. Like if we have kids who don't want to sign forms, or they're pumping the brakes for some reason, that could be a reason. Sometimes we also have to have an heir who needs to get a bond, but their credit is bad. So there's a lot of different things that can go on, but as a general rule, it should not take a year. And your attorney should be communicating with you about, if it is going to take that long, why it's going to take that long.
Yeah.
Like, I try to keep my clients updated every step of the way about, this is what's happening now. I know you haven't heard from me in a while. I haven't had anything to tell you, but here's where we are. Or I'll say, you might not hear from me for 90 days, but you'll come back up on my calendar when this 90 days expires, and then someone from my office is going to call you.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned a will.
Yes.
And from my understanding, that's very important to have, and everyone should have one. So
Yes.
we'll touch on that. So what other documents besides a will do you recommend that people have? And what exactly is a will?
So I like to take care of people while they're alive first. So when you're alive, you need a healthcare POA, a financial POA. Those are not the same thing. They're
POA, power of attorney?
power of attorney.
Got it.
And you need a living will.
Okay.
Living will, I can kind of be soft on. Not everybody needs a living will. I have one, but I have one because I don't want to live in a persistent vegetative state if I'm ever brain damaged.
Yes.
I just want to be unplugged. So that's a very heavy decision make for some people. I do talk clients through those all the time, but everyone needs a healthcare power of attorney and a financial power of attorney. And the reason that you need that is because as much as we want to think that we're invincible and we're going to live to be 100, every single person who's in a brain trauma center never thought that was going to happen to them. So you can get hit by a drunk driver, you can have a dangerous fall, you can have any number of things can happen to you. And if it does, and you have a brain injury, or if you get dementia, or if you have a stroke, who's going to keep your lights on? Who's paying the power bill? Who's paying your mortgage? Who's doing any of the stuff that you routinely do?
Yeah.
If you don't have that person appointed, you have to get declared legally incompetent. And then you have to go through a judicial process, yes, that can take 6 to 8 weeks. And in some counties, it can take longer because you have to file a petition, you have to go before the clerk of the court, you have to get letters for guardianship, and then everything that you do as guardian is monitored by the court. So it makes what could be a $131 document a $5,000 document by the time the hearing and all the court filings are done. And the same with a healthcare power of attorney. If you need to go to a brain trauma center, well, you can't just get signed into a brain trauma center if you're over 18. Someone has to have the legal authority to do that.
Okay.
So that's what those two documents do and why they're so important. They're really not that expensive. I mean, you're talking literally a couple $100s at most firms.
Yeah.
Versus thousands of dollars if you don't have that as an option.
Yeah.
Then your will. So what your will actually does is your will says what happens to all my stuff if I'm dead and who is in charge of all my stuff if I'm dead. Like who's going to make sure that everyone gets everything. So for most couples, it's, a sweetheart will. Me to my husband to me, and then to my kids in equal parts. And then usually I recommend that people pick their oldest child, their most responsible child, or the child who lives the closest to them.
Makes sense.
To then be in charge of that will. But essentially that's what it does. I had someone reach out to me recently because her apartment complex, she didn't own anything. She literally was living paycheck to paycheck. And her apartment complex was like, if you die in this apartment, we cannot let your family come in to do anything if you don't have a will. And I was like,
interesting.
That's not true. But your family would have to go to the clerk of the court and get letters of administration, which is a big pain. And it's a bigger pain the more kids you have. So if you've got 6 kids and they live all over the country, if you've just got an only child who lives next door, not so hard. But if you've got like a scatter of family members everywhere, it's a mess.
Yeah, it sounds like a mess. Okay, so scenario, because this has been a scenario that has come up.
Sure.
What if you're married and you have a child, the child's a minor?
Okay.
You die, and I guess maybe in your will, or you don't have a will, and the house is left to the husband and the minor child.
Nightmare.
What happened? Like, walk us through that. It's a scenario that I have talked to someone about recently, and I'm like,
Well, let's talk about, first of all, don't do that.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you what happens in that situation, but first of all, don't wind up in that situation at all. Because essentially what happens is a minor does not have a right to contract. If you're under 18, you're not an adult, you can be taken advantage of, you can make decisions that you're not mature enough to make or don't have the life skills to make. So anyone under 18 does not have a right to contract. So if your plan is, well, I want to leave my kids my house if me and my husband die on our trip to Aruba, You need to put that house in a trust, and you need to appoint a trustee in case you die. You can make testamentary trusts that only come alive if you're dead. You don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars on some complicated trust now. But do not leave a scenario where a person under 18 owns real estate. Do not. It is a nightmare. But let's say, okay, nobody saw Paula or a competent lawyer for their preliminary planning.
Yep.
And here we are. This 4-year-old owns a house. The only option you have at that point is to either do nothing until they're 18 and can sign, or you have to begin the process of a judicial sale. And a judicial sale means that the clerk of the court is going to appoint a commissioner, which is almost always an attorney, because the process of doing a judicial sale is complicated and they need to make sure it's been done correctly. So they appoint an attorney who's going to get paid 5% under statute. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Correct. And then that attorney is almost always going to hire a real estate agent. And then the real estate agent is going to get their cut from the sale of the house. So you're already out the door 8% if you're lucky in attorney fees and real estate agent fees. Then you're going to have someone make an offer on the house and get it under contract. But then you have to post it for 5 days in the courthouse. And then after that, it goes for public viewing. So essentially what can happen is every 10 days, somebody can upset that bid. Now, upset bids are great because under statute, they have to put in a minimum upset bid of 5%. So every time someone makes an upset bid, you know, you're making more money on the house, but you're also not selling the house. And the other thing is if a family wants to do something like, let's say this house, someone's niece wants to buy it and they want to pay X amount for it. Well, if they get upset bid by a real estate investor, too bad, so sad, they're out. There's nothing you can do about that. So the judicial sales can go on for months. I mean, they can literally, I've had real estate agents in my office who are so mad because when is this going to close? And I'm like, I don't know. Whenever the judicial sale period ends, and then it has to get signed off on by a superior court judge. So it
sounds like a nightmare.
It's expensive. It's lengthy. It means you can't sell it to anyone you want. It's getting checked by like the highest level of the judicial system. So just don't do it.
So when it does sell, then so like if the house is in a spouse and the minor child, what happens with the money? Does the spouse get half and the minor child get half, and then like how does that split work?
That's an excellent question. So the commissioner figures all that out. So usually what happens is, yes, the spouse would get their money. The child's money usually gets frozen. It either gets frozen or it gets parked at the clerk's office, depending on how much it is, or you can be forced to put it in a 529 or a UTMA until that child's 18. But the key word about that is also 18. So you can't then say, well, I don't want this kid to get the money until they're 30. That ship sailed. So when they're 18, it's their money, whether you like it or not. So if this individual has no business having money like that, like there is no way on God's green earth, and I love my children, and I'm hoping to live to see them be responsible tax-paying citizens. There is no way I want my boys to turn 18 and get a six-figure amount of money. That is a recipe for chaos.
Yes.
So, so to start with, just don't leave real estate to minors. But if you're a real estate investor and you realize something's going to have to go through a judicial sale, just realize you can get upset bid every 10 days. But this is also a good thing for real estate investors to do, because if they have the money to upset bid, if they hang out in the courthouses and just walk past the wall, there's usually just literally it's a bulletin board. It's literally like an old school 1990s like stapled pieces of paper to a wall. They can go look at all the judicial sales that are currently pending. And I mean, they might want to wind up upset bidding a house. Also, that's not totally true. The paper on the wall is only true in some counties. Mecklenburg County has a binder. So larger counties just have a big binder.
Got it.
But you can walk in and ask the clerk to see it. Yeah.
And but you can't bring your phone in, right? So you have to like bring a pad, a piece of paper, and like write it down, or is that?
That's county to county. So in Mecklenburg County, you can bring your phone in.
Cool.
In Cabarrus County, you cannot. And in Stanley County, you can, unless they're having a superior court trial. Every county does this differently. So again, I would just advise you can call the courthouse and say, hey, I'm interested in coming to look at your judicial sales for upset bids. If you do want to do that, you need to either be prepared to make a cash upset bid or bring a certified check. They're not going to take a personal check from anybody.
Okay, cool. Guys, this is very important information. If you don't watch anything else in this podcast, like this portion is super important. So, okay, so another thing that you mentioned while we were talking was a trust.
Yes.
And that is thrown around a lot. Everyone's like, you need a trust, you need a trust, you need a trust. Do you need a trust? And who does actually need a trust?
So I disagree with the concept that everyone needs a trust. And I do that because I'm a North Carolina girl and I'm talking to you about my North Carolina license. Because we do not have state estate tax, most North Carolinians do not need a trust.
Okay.
If the only reason you need a trust is because you want to avoid probate, just do probate.
Okay.
Probate is not going to be that bad. It's a process that you're going to have to go through, but it's actually going to be cheaper to just do a simple probate than it is to pay for a trust and then transfer all of your stuff into the trust.
Yeah.
That said, however, there's really 4 groups of people that I'm like, yeah, you need a trust. The first one is you're worth more than $14 million.
Okay.
Those people 100% need a trust. And quite frankly, I'm not smart enough to write trusts for those people. Seriously. There are very few attorneys in the local area that I trust to write those types of expensive trusts because you're literally having to figure out how to protect people from the IRS.
Okay.
So I'm very specific about who I refer to for those types of trusts. Like, don't let somebody who graduated 5 minutes ago or who hasn't done this a lot write a trust if you're worth $14 million. Just call my office and I will give you a referral. But don't just let anyone do that. I literally am not smart enough to do that, and I'm a smart cookie and I don't touch those. You need one if you have a child who is medically fragile or disabled.
Okay.
So if you have a child who has Down syndrome, if you have a child who has cerebral palsy, some sort of physical or mental disability where they are not going to be able to sign stuff because they are incompetent, then we need to create a special needs trust. If you have minors, you can have a testamentary trust, but it can be built into your will so that it's not like the expensive, difficult will that we think about in other circumstances. You also need one if you do need to be worried about Medicaid planning.
Okay.
So I occasionally see a real estate investor who's an excellent real estate investor, but they are land rich but cash poor. So if you wind up being land rich but cash poor, I want you to have enough money coming in from your tenants that you can pay for your long-term care.
Yeah.
But for my clients who I have 2 acres of land with a house on it, and then I have a 60-acre farm, and I have no other cash investments, those people need a trust, because if they don't, they're going to lose that farm to Medicaid. And so they need to do Medicaid planning. But a lot of my real estate investors, they're going to be fine no matter what, because once they have a bunch of houses that are paid off, if they have tenants in the house, then the rent that they get from the tenants will pay for their long-term care, which is a genius plan in terms of wealth stacking.
Okay, cool. Okay, fun question. So, without obviously naming any names,
Sure.
what is one of the craziest, worst scenarios that you have ever had to work on that you were like, oh my gosh, I really hope that no one else ever has to go through this ever again?
That would be a circumstance where an individual who was about to be deported wrote his own deed, did a great job. Honestly, he did an amazing job writing his own deed. But he gave percentages of a house to basically every woman in his family, one of which included his 4-year-old daughter. So he had his mother fighting with his daughter's mother about what they were going to do, because those 2 women didn't really get along and see eye to eye about what should happen. And then he left the country. And then he was actually great to work with and deal with, but he left me with his fighting mother and child's mother and then this little girl. So I had to do a judicial sale because the little girl's name was also on the deed.
Oh my gosh.
So that was a nightmare. And I was like, that is a prime example of if this man had just come to see me, I would never have let him do that.
Yeah.
Like, I would have helped him figure out something, but it wouldn't have been that.
Oh my gosh, that is insane.
I've also had houses with hoarders in them. Like, I've also had scenarios where dad has a longtime girlfriend. Like, dad and girlfriend have been squeezed for 25 years, but they have no will. And girlfriend's name is not on anything. So dad dies, and dad's kids are both out of the state. Dad's kids don't like dad's girlfriend, and dad's kids want money. So dad's kids want to evict the girlfriend who's lived in this house for 25 years, but whose name isn't on anything.
Does she have any right to just kick her out?
I mean, they have to go through a formalized eviction
Yeah.
process, but she doesn't own anything.
Yeah.
Her name's not on anything. And if dad dies with no will, she's not his wife. So she's not entitled to anything. She's not a spouse. She's a side chick, essentially. That's not a good place to be in.
It's not a good place to be.
So then his kids were like, we're selling this house, move. And they have every legal right to do it. So people who are in long-term partnerships, but for whatever reason don't want to get married, and I see this a lot. I see people who are divorced and don't want to get married, or, you know, they don't believe in marriage for whatever reason. You can still take care of each other either in the way you title your deed or in the way you set up your estate planning. Like, if this man had left a will that said, I'm leaving the house I live in to my girlfriend, it would have been her house. But because he didn't do that and he just died on her, his kids evicted her and kicked her out and sold the house, and they were able to do that.
So that is crazy. So after 25 years, the kids can just evict her out of the house. So that's a question that I get from landlords that are new to it, and they want to rent their house. They're like, oh, what about squatters' rights and all of these things? So that kind of ties into that loosely.
Well, she's also not a squatter. She was dad's long-term girlfriend.
Okay.
And now dad's dead.
Yeah. So it's different. That's two different situations. The squatter thing is actually a thing.
The squatter thing is a thing, and oh gosh, I hate the squatter situation. All I can tell you is, if you have a house that no one is actively living in, you should never assume that nobody's going to know. Because just like how real estate investors can go to the courthouse and see what houses are for sale, so can squatters. And these people get really good at this kind of
Professionals.
thing. Yeah. Like the house that you were talking about that was abandoned, that you drove past it all the time and you saw it was abandoned. Squatters are doing that exact same thing. So if you have a house that truly no one is living in it, you need to make sure it's locked, do some kind of padlocking, check it periodically to make sure there's no one in it. Like, don't just be like, yeah, whatever, and not visit it for 6 months.
Yeah.
That's how you wind up with a squatter who you then can't get rid of, and it becomes a nightmare.
So that is a thing.
Yes, the other thing that I want people to think about when they have a home that's currently uninhabited, I have clients sometimes who are really emotional about grandma's house, and they just don't want to sell it. They don't want to part with it. Like, it's this big thing for them. And I am so compassionate to that. I mean, I say this as someone who practices law out of her great-grandmother's house. I get that. But when you just let it sit there, a bunch of stuff goes wrong. One, squatters are at a risk. The other thing is, anytime a home is uninhabited, if you have a pipe burst, if you have the air conditioner go out, you know, major damage can happen to a home that you don't know about because you're not in it. Rodents can move into it. You can get infestations that you're not prepared for, and now that's a whole other problem you have to fix. And most insurance companies are not going to insure a home that's uninhabited. So if you can't keep your insurance up because the insurance company knows the owner's dead, at some point you're going to have to tell them, or they can find out. Most people have an obituary online nowadays. So they're going to find out. So then if they don't insure the house and it gets struck by lightning, then you're out. So usually I tell people, like, try not to be so emotional. I know it's an emotional thing, but figure out how to work past that, because gosh, you don't want to lose your interest in a house that can make you a life-changing amount of money.
For sure.
Or cost you $40,000 in repairs, and now it's not insured and you can't do it. Or you have a squatter. So you really do need to be attentive to your real estate when someone dies.
Yeah. And if you need help, hire a property manager and they can help you do that.
Correct.
All right, so last question. What is the best piece of advice that you can give our listeners about the estate planning, probate process that you want everyone to know because you don't really want to see that. You want people to know what to do and not have to worry about it.
Hire a lawyer. And I recognize that sounds so biased. That is what
True,
I
it's
do.
part of your team.
It is what I do. However, I see all the time what happens when people don't have an attorney, when they wrote a handwritten will themselves, when they made something off of LegalZoom. LegalZoom does not love you like I do. They're not going to love you the way that I will. I'm going to really ask you questions about your whole family. I'm going to tell you what can go wrong. I'm going to guide you through that process. And then when somebody does die, I'm going to be there to help you with this. So for that, the other thing that I would like to make sure everyone knows is when grandma dies, clear the title to grandma's house. So what I see a lot is grandma dies, and let's say best case scenario, grandma left a will, and that will left her house to her 6 children in equal parts. But everyone was kind of emotional, or they were just like, well, oldest daughter lives there because she's been taking care of grandma and we all love her. So oldest daughter's just going to get that house. So oldest daughter lives out her life in this house, and it's oldest daughter's house. But then she dies, and then some of the other kids die. And then what happens is you're 3-4 generations down the line, and now 42 cousins all own an equal and undivided share.
I've seen that.
In great grandma's house. At that point, you're going to have to sell it in a partition sale, which works very similarly to a judicial sale. No one is going to get the money that they would have gotten had they just sold it or cleared title to it early on. And worse, if something happens like Hurricane Helene, and you need to file an insurance claim to replace your property, your insurance company and FEMA are not going to work with you if you don't own the house.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Because it's in great-grandmama's name, but great-grandma left a will that left it to 6 people, and a bunch of them are dead. Like, you are never going to get your money out of it. So you always have to think, like, your enemies, sometimes people get so emotional in stupid things with their family members. Your enemy is not your family. Your enemy is the IRS for your taxes, and your enemy is things like the insurance company and you not being able to prove that you own what you own. You can't even get a HELOC or remodel a house if the air conditioner breaks or if you need a new roof. You can't go apply for anything to fix that if you can't prove you own it. So you've got to clear your title when people die and prove ownership.
Yeah, for sure. Paula, you are a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you.
How can people get in touch with you?
So they can go to my website, which is very easy to remember. It's just Country Law Shack, and that's literally like the Crab Shack or like the 1980s song, like the Love Shack song.
Love it.
Because my house literally was a shack when I got it, as I stated earlier. So countrylawshack.com.
Cool.
They can also call my office at 704-436-2214.
And you have one of the best slogans I've ever heard. Tell us your company slogan.
You can ride your tractor to us. And the reason that's my slogan is because one day my dad actually did.
Oh my gosh.
So my dad lives right up the road, and he literally drove his John Deere. Now, do I recommend that? Probably not. Have I lectured my dad about don't drive your tractor up Highway 49? Absolutely. But my dad 100% drove his tractor to us one day. So all of our pens say you can ride your tractor to us.
I love it. All right, guys, you heard it. So if you're worth less than $13 million and you have a tractor, go see Paula at Country Law Shack.